Everyone thinks they know the story of the Trojan horse, a giant wooden horse, a clever trick by Odysseus, and boom, Troy finally falls after 10 years of bloody stalemate. Hell, we've all heard it a million times, but here's what most people get completely wrong. Odysseus may have come up with the idea, but he didn't build a damn thing. The real hero, the guy who actually designed and constructed the most famous military deception in history, was a man named Epeius. And unlike the glory-soaked warriors who get all the credit, this guy was known throughout the Greek camp as a coward. The man whose hands created the wooden structure that ended the legendary war couldn't even hold his own in battle. How's that for history's greatest irony? So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment your city and time. Last week, someone from Canada said they listen during lunch breaks. Not judging, just wasn't expecting that. Okay, tonight it's the Trojan War. But wait, are you comfortable? No, really, check. Pillows, blankets, the whole deal. Where we're going, you'll want to be settled. So congratulations, you just woke up in the Greek camp outside the walls of Troy. It's the 10th year of a war that was only supposed to last a few months. 10 brutal years of watching your friends die for some Spartan king's wounded pride. Your back aches from sleeping on the hard-packed dirt beneath your makeshift tent. The air smells of smoke, sweat, and salt from the nearby Aegean Sea. In the distance, Troy's massive walls loom like a taunt, impossibly strong, endlessly defiant. Not like your cozy bed right now. It's barely dawn when you hear shouting from the tent next to yours, the first sounds that greet you every single day in this godforsaken war. Hungry, angry men looking for someone to blame. This morning, it's Epeius they're mocking. Hey, carpenter, save some wine for the men who actually fight. The voice belongs to Thoas, a bulky Aetolian with more scars than teeth. Epeius doesn't respond. He never does. His hands, calloused and strong, continue working a piece of wood with his knife, shaving it into some useful shape. Those hands are the strongest part of him, the part that's never failed him, unlike his courage. You've watched him in battle. He hangs back, his spear trembling. But give him timber and tools and he transforms. Those same hands that shake when holding weapons become steady as stone when gripping an adze or hammer. The man can transform raw wood into anything. Epeius looks up from his work, and you notice the dark circles under his eyes. The man hasn't slept well in days. None of you have. The rations are low. Again, mostly barley cakes so hard they could crack teeth, a bit of wine that tastes more like vinegar with each passing day, and whatever fish the men can catch. Some soldiers have resorted to eating rats, not the glorious war they sang about back home. And the Trojans, they're sitting pretty behind those walls, getting fresh food and water delivered from their inland allies. You can sometimes smell the meat cooking during their festivals. Pure torture. Water rations cut again, a voice says beside you. It's Alexios, one of the few friends you've managed to keep alive these 10 years. 2 cups per man today. Agamemnon's orders. 2 cups, barely enough to keep a man alive in this heat, let alone combat ready. But that's been the story of this endless siege, slowly dying outside the walls while waiting for some miracle to break the stalemate. As you collect your water ration in a dented bronze cup, you notice a commotion near Agamemnon's tent. The kings are gathering. Odysseus of Ithaca, Ajax the Greater, Diomedes, all of them huddled with the commander. Something's happening. Odysseus looks different today. There's a gleam in his eye that you haven't seen since the early years of the war. The man's known for his cunning, his wily mind, as the poets will one day call it. When he gets that look, things change, sometimes for better, sometimes for much, much worse. You're not important enough to be part of their council, so you return to your tent, gnawing on a stale barley cake. The taste reminds you of wet clay, another joy of army life. Men would kill for a taste of honey or fresh bread. Some literally have during the worst supply shortages. The heat builds as the sun climbs higher. Your leather armor sticks to your skin and flies buzz around the festering wounds of the man in the tent next to yours. The camp healers do what they can, but infection claims almost as many men as Trojan spears. The smell of rot and unwashed bodies hangs over everything like an invisible fog. Midday brings a moment of excitement when a patrol returns with a wild boar they managed to spear in the foothills. Not enough to feed everyone, but the officers will eat well tonight. You won't. It's during this momentary distraction that you notice Odysseus walking purposefully toward Epeius's tent. The carpenter is still there, working. He's built himself a small awning for shade, always practical, that one, and continues shaping what looks like a new handle for someone's broken tool. Odysseus ducks under the awning, and though you can't hear what's being said, you can see Epeius's expression change from surprise to disbelief to something like fear. But there's something else there too, a flicker of pride perhaps. The conversation lasts longer than you'd expect. At one point, Epeius stands, gesturing with his hands as if describing dimensions. Odysseus nods, clearly pleased with whatever he's hearing. When Odysseus finally leaves, Epeius sits back down, but he's no longer working. He stares at the distant walls of Troy with an intensity you've never seen from him before. Then, strangely, he begins drawing in the dirt with a stick, shapes, lines, calculations. Later, as the day cools toward evening, rumours begin spreading through camp. The kings have a plan, a new strategy to finally end this miserable war. Something about a horse, something about deception. Details are sparse, contradictory. What you do know is that Epeius is suddenly being treated with unusual respect. The same men who mocked him at dawn are now bringing him extra rations at dusk. Even Thoas approaches the carpenter's tent with what looks suspiciously like an offering of wine. As night falls, you notice men quietly gathering wood from the supply pile and bringing it to a clearing near Epeius's tent. Not enough for a signal fire or cooking, much more than that. They work by torchlight, speaking in hushed tones. In the dying light, you catch a glimpse of Epeius standing amid the growing pile of timber. He's holding what appears to be a measuring cord, his face set in deep concentration, no longer the trembling coward. Now he looks like a man with purpose, a man with a plan. For the first time in years, something like hope stirs in the Greek camp. You've seen that look before, on the faces of men about to attempt something either incredibly brave or suicidally stupid. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. As you settle into your hard bedroll for another uncomfortable night, the sound of hammering begins, rhythmic and purposeful. It continues long after most of the camp has fallen into exhausted sleep. In the distance, the walls of Troy gleam under moonlight, still unbreached, still defiant. But something has changed. The war feels different tonight. The strange music of construction, hammering, sawing, men grunting as they lift heavy objects, becomes your lullaby. Whatever Epeius is building, it's big, and if Odysseus is involved, it's bound to be clever and dangerous. The last thing you see before sleep claims you is Epeius's silhouette against the torchlight, directing men with newfound authority, pointing toward the stars as if measuring the heavens themselves. The coward transformed into something else entirely, a creator, an engineer, a man who might just change the course of this endless war with the strength of his hands rather than his spear arm. Tomorrow, you think, tomorrow we'll see what the carpenter can do. In your dreams, wood creaks and groans as if coming alive. You see massive legs taking shape, a hollow belly large enough to swallow men whole, and wonder what madness the gods have inspired this time. But one thing is certain, after 10 years of stalemate, something new is finally happening in the shadow of Troy's impenetrable walls. See, nobody ever talks about what a pain in the arse it was just staying alive during that war, old Timaeus had told you once, back in your village. The ancient veteran had fought at Troy in his youth, 10 years living in tents, drinking brackish water, eating whatever wouldn't kill you immediately. Half my unit died of dysentery, not Trojan spears, and the smell, gods, the smell of thousands of men living in their own filth for a decade. The poets never mention that part, do they? No, you think. They certainly don't. The glory of war sounds much better in stories than it smells in reality. The hammering continues deep into the night, punctuated occasionally by cursing when someone smashes a thumb instead of a nail. Whatever Epeius is building, it's being built by men who've been at war for 10 years. Tired, hungry, desperate men who likely never worked as carpenters before this endless siege. As sleep finally takes you, one last thought drifts through your mind. What could possibly be so important that Agamemnon would allocate precious wood, manpower, and resources to build it, in a camp where men fight over scraps of food and cups of water, where every decision is calculated against survival? This sudden project speaks of something momentous. Tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll find out what the cowardly carpenter has been tasked to create, and why, after 10 long years, the most skilled hands in the Greek army are finally being put to their greatest use. Morning arrives with the unmistakable sounds of serious construction, the rhythmic pounding of mallets, the rasp of saws biting through timber, the grunts of men straining to lift heavy wooden beams. You roll over on your bedroll, surprised to see that the sun is already well above the horizon. Somehow you've slept later than usual despite the noise. The camp is buzzing with an energy you haven't felt in years. Curiosity drags you from your tent toward the source of the commotion. What you find is both confusing and impressive. In a cleared area near the beached ships, Epeius stands at the center of organized chaos. Around him, at least 30 men work with obvious purpose. Some are stripping bark from newly cut logs, others are splitting timber with wedges and hammers. A group of soldiers, men who yesterday were complaining about sore feet and dull spears, now carefully measure and mark lengths of wood under Epeius's watchful eye. But it's what's taking shape in the center that stops you cold. A massive wooden framework rises from the ground, the beginnings of something. You can't quite tell what it is yet, but it's big, really big. The skeleton of beams suggests a rectangular base with vertical supports that rise taller than 2 men. Epeius moves through it all like a man possessed. Gone is the hesitant, fearful soldier. In his place stands a master craftsman in his element, pointing, correcting, demonstrating. When he speaks, men listen. Even Ajax, the giant Ajax, who fears no man alive, nods respectfully when Epeius explains something about a joint that needs reinforcing. What in Hades are they building? You ask a passing soldier carrying a bucket of wooden pegs. The man glances around before answering, his voice low. A horse, a massive wooden horse. A what? Why would we? Odysseus's plan, going to hide men inside it, trick the Trojans into dragging it into their city. You stare at the growing framework with new understanding. Not a siege engine or a weapon, a trick. A giant wooden offering that's actually a hollow transport for warriors. It's so absurd it just might work, or get everyone involved killed in spectacular fashion. As if summoned by your thoughts, Odysseus appears, deep in conversation with Epeius. The carpenter is sketching something in the dirt with a stick while Odysseus nods intently. "Must be large enough for at least 30 men," Odysseus is saying, "but not so large they'll never drag it through their gates." Epeius frowns, calculating. Their main gate is approximately 15 feet wide. If we build it much wider than 12 feet, they'll never get it inside. And the height? That depends on the men inside. They'll need to sit stacked in 3 levels. Epeius draws a cross-section in the dirt. See? Bottom level here, middle here, top near the neck and head. If we make it 25 feet tall, there should be enough room. Odysseus whistles softly. Can you build something that large in time? For the first time, Epeius smiles, a confident, almost predatory expression. Give me 3 days. 3 days? To build that? Odysseus looks skeptical. 3 days, Epeius repeats firmly. But I need more men, and I need uninterrupted access to the lumber we salvaged from those damaged ships. You'll have it. And the men inside? Need to be chosen carefully. No one too large. No one prone to coughing fits or panic. And absolutely no one with loose bowels. This last requirement makes Odysseus laugh, a rare sound in the camp these days. I'm serious, Epeius insists. 30 men packed together in a wooden belly for who knows how long. One man with stomach troubles will doom the whole operation. You drift closer, pretending to be interested in a pile of rope nearby. This is by far the most interesting thing to happen in months, possibly years. What about the trapdoor? Odysseus asks, his voice lower now. Epeius nods. Bottom of the belly, hidden by the legs from outside view. I'll design a special catch that only I can operate from inside. You? Odysseus raises an eyebrow. You're going inside? Epeius straightens his shoulders. It's my design, my creation, and... He hesitates. I know how Greek soldiers treat equipment. Someone needs to be in there who understands how it all fits together. What goes unsaid hangs in the air between them. Someone who might not be missed in the fighting outside. Someone whose greatest value isn't his spear arm. Odysseus studies the carpenter for a long moment, then nods. Very well, you'll go inside with the others. Now, what about materials? The conversation turns technical, with Epeius detailing the various types of wood needed. Oak for the framework, strong enough to support the weight, pine planks for the exterior, lighter and easier to work, specialized joints reinforced with bronze fixtures salvaged from broken chariot wheels. You drift away, mind spinning with the audacity of it all. A giant wooden horse, a gift to trick the Trojans. It's either brilliant or the desperate plan of men who've been at war too long. Possibly both. Throughout the morning, you watch the structure take shape with surprising speed. Epeius has clearly been planning this in his head for some time. The base is fully framed by midday, a rectangular platform with the beginnings of 4 sturdy legs extending upward. The work isn't without challenges. Twice you see Epeius tear down sections that don't meet his exacting standards. He gets into a shouting match with Epeios, one of Ajax's men, about the quality of some timber. "This wood is green," Epeius yells, throwing down a plank in disgust. "It'll warp within days. Find me seasoned wood, or this whole thing will collapse with our men inside." Epeios, a head taller and twice as broad as the carpenter, looks ready to crush him for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he backs down. "We used all the seasoned wood from the last shipment," he admits. Epeius runs a hand through his hair in frustration. "Then we need to speed dry what we have. Build fires. Not too close, we don't want to burn it, just dry it faster." That creates a new flurry of activity as men clear spaces for controlled fires near the construction site. You've never seen soldiers work this hard except in battle. There's an energy in the air, a sense of purpose that's been missing through years of futile siege. By midday, hunger drives you to the food distribution area. The usual miserable rations await, hard barley cakes and watered wine, but even here there's change. Extra portions are being provided to the men working on construction. King's orders, explains the distribution officer when you ask. Those men are doing the work of 3. As you chew the brick-like barley cake, you wander back to watch the construction. The wooden frame now clearly resembles the lower half of a horse. The 4 legs are complete, secured to a rectangular base, and the rounded belly is taking shape between them. Epius stands on a platform, directing the installation of curved ribs that will form the horse's barrel-like torso. His face is streaked with sweat and sawdust, but his eyes are alive with concentration. He moves with certainty, his hands demonstrating exactly how each piece should fit. "Oh, no, no," he shouts at a soldier struggling with a joining piece. "The curve needs to be uniform or the exterior planking won't sit flush. Like this." He takes the tools himself, quickly reshaping the wood with practiced movements. "See, now it will hold weight without creaking." You're so absorbed in watching that you don't notice Odysseus approach until he speaks beside you. Impressive, isn't it? You nearly jump out of your skin. The king of Ithaca has a way of moving silently when he chooses. "Yes, my lord," you stammer. "I've never seen anything like it." Odysseus studies you thoughtfully. "You're from Euboea, aren't you? Served under Elephenor until he fell." You're startled he knows this detail. "Yes, lord." "Good fighters, the Euboeans." He turns his attention back to the construction. "What do you think of our horse?" The question seems genuine, not a test. Still, you choose your words carefully. It's clever. If the Trojans take it inside their walls, a big if, Odysseus acknowledges. They're not fools, the Trojans. They've survived 10 years of our best efforts. What makes you think they'll accept it? A sly smile crosses the king's face. "Because we'll make it irresistible, a dedication to Poseidon, god of horses, too magnificent to destroy, and we'll leave them a convincing storyteller." Before you can ask what he means, a commotion erupts near the supply area. 2 men are fighting over a bronze fitting, their shouts drawing a crowd. "Excuse me," Odysseus says, already moving toward the disturbance. "Can't have delays." The argument is settled quickly. Odysseus has a way with words that could probably talk fire into freezing. Work resumes somehow even more intensely than before. As afternoon wears on, the horse continues to take shape. The belly is now clearly defined, a hollow chamber large enough to hold several men. Workers have begun attaching exterior planking, transforming the skeleton into a solid form. Epius moves constantly, checking measurements, testing joints, making adjustments. You notice he pays special attention to the underside of the belly, where planking creates a small, barely noticeable seam. The trapdoor, you realize, the secret exit that will unleash Greek warriors into the heart of Troy. The sun beats down mercilessly, and men strip to their waists as they work. Epius remains fully clothed despite the heat, his focus absolute. Twice you see him refuse water, unwilling to pause even for basic needs. Late in the afternoon, a complication arises. The head of the horse, partially constructed separately, doesn't properly align with the neck framework. Epius examines the joint, his expression darkening. "The angle's wrong," he declares. "We need to rebuild the neck support." This prompts groans from the exhausted workers. They've been labouring non-stop since dawn. "No shortcuts," Epeius insists. "If the head separates during transport, the entire ruse is exposed." Reluctantly, men begin dismantling part of their day's work. You're struck by how seriously everyone is taking this project. These are the same soldiers who regularly shirk latrine duty or find excuses to avoid sentry shifts, yet here they are, rebuilding a section of a giant wooden horse without complaint. Hope is a powerful motivator, you realize. After 10 years of stalemate, even the slimmest chance of victory drives men beyond normal endurance. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, you notice a small group gathering near Agamemnon's tent. The kings are meeting again. Odysseus, Diomedes, Menelaus, and others, huddled in serious discussion. Occasionally, one glances toward the half-completed horse, then back to their circle. They're selecting the men who will hide inside, you realize, choosing the warriors who will risk everything on this desperate gamble. A soldier passing by offers a surprising piece of information. They're drawing lots, volunteers only, but they're using lots to make the final selection. Volunteers, you ask, genuinely surprised, to be locked inside a wooden horse and dragged into enemy territory? The soldier shrugs. Better than another 10 years of this hell. You can't argue with that logic. As dusk approaches, work on the horse slows but doesn't stop. Torches are lit, creating a circle of flickering light around the massive structure. In the dancing shadows, the half-completed horse seems to shift and move, almost alive. Epius finally takes a break, dropping exhausted onto a wooden crate. He accepts a cup of water, drinking deeply. Even resting, his eyes never leave his creation. He studies it from different angles, mentally working through tomorrow's challenges. A soldier approaches him hesitantly. "Sir?" The men are wondering, "What about the wheels?" Epius nods, unsurprised by the question. "Tomorrow, we'll attach them last. 4 wheels salvaged from grain carts, reinforced with bronze. They'll need to support tremendous weight." "And if they break during transport?" "They won't," Epius says with absolute certainty. "I've redesigned the axles specifically for this purpose." The confidence in his voice is striking. This is a different man from the hesitant soldier you've known for years. In his element, Epeius radiates authority. As night falls completely, Agamemnon finally orders a halt to the work. Men drop tools and stumble toward cookfires. Utterly spent, only Epius remains, making notes in the dirt by torchlight, occasionally looking up to study some aspect of the structure. "He hasn't eaten all day," comments a soldier sitting near your fire. "Probably won't sleep either," adds another. "Man's obsessed." You glance toward the lone figure still working in the torchlit darkness. Perhaps obsession is exactly what this desperate plan needs. Later, as you prepare for sleep, you see something unusual. Men are quietly gathering near the horse, placing small offerings at its base. A cup of wine, a piece of bread, a carved wooden figure. Not formal sacrifices to the gods, but personal tokens, as if the horse itself might bring them luck. 10 years of war has made the Greek army superstitious. Anything for an edge, anything for favour from the fickle gods. As you drift towards sleep, the last thing you see is Epeius, still awake, still working. He circles the partially built horse like a parent, checking on a sleeping child. Adjusting here, reinforcing there, constantly improving. Tomorrow the horse will take its final form. Tomorrow you'll see if the cowardly carpenter's masterpiece might actually end this endless war. In your dreams that night, you see Troy's walls finally breached, not by battering rams or siege towers, but by a wooden creation with a hollow belly full of Greece's deadliest warriors, all thanks to the man least likely to be remembered as a hero, the trembling soldier with the gifted hands who built victory from timber and rope and bronze. In the strange logic of dreams, you find yourself inside the horse, cramped among sweating warriors, feeling the structure sway as it's dragged across uneven ground. The wood creaks alarmingly. Someone whispers a prayer, another suppresses a cough. Outside, Trojan voices debate whether to burn the offering or bring it inside their walls. Everything hinges on their decision. Everything hangs on the craftsmanship of a single man, the quality of his joints, the strength of his design, the cleverness of his hidden door. In that suspended moment between life and death, victory and defeat, you realize that Epeius is no coward at all. His courage simply takes a different form, not the blood-soaked glory of battlefield heroes, but the quiet determination to create something that will long outlive him. And in that realization, your dreaming mind finally understands. Sometimes the greatest acts of bravery look nothing like the stories later tell. The second day dawns clear and hot, the kind of scorching summer day when the air feels solid. By the time you emerge from your tent, the camp is already buzzing with activity centered around Epeius's creation. The horse has evolved overnight, its form now unmistakable. 4 sturdy legs support a rounded belly, the curved neck extends upward, and the rough shape of a head is taking form. You're not the only one drawn to watch. Soldiers gather at the edges of the work area, their morning duties temporarily forgotten. There's something hypnotic about seeing the massive beast take shape, like watching the gods breathe life into wood. Epeius is already at work, or more likely, still at work from the night before. His eyes are rimmed with red, his movements slightly slower than yesterday, but his focus remains absolute. He directs a team attaching exterior planking to the horse's belly with the precision of a battlefield commander. "Tighter seams," he calls to a group working on the right flank. "I should not be able to slip a blade between those planks." A soldier demonstrates the joining technique to his less skilled companions, an angled overlap that creates a nearly invisible seam when properly executed. Where did infantry soldiers learn such carpentry skills? Then you notice that many of today's workers are different from yesterday's crew. Epeius has apparently been selecting men with relevant experience, shipwrights, carpenters, wheelwrights, from throughout the vast Greek army. The horse's belly is the focus this morning. What yesterday was an open framework is now being enclosed, creating the hollow chamber that will hide Greek warriors. Watching the planking seal, the space makes your breath catch, imagining being locked inside that wooden prison, depending entirely on the craftsmanship of these joins to remain hidden and secure. Around midday, a new challenge emerges. As workers complete more of the exterior planking, the structure's weight increases dramatically. One of the supporting scaffolds creaks ominously, then cracks. "Brace it," Epeius shouts, rushing forward. Men scramble to position timber supports as the horse shifts slightly to one side. For a tense moment, it seems the entire structure might collapse. Then the emergency bracing takes hold and the horse stabilizes. Soldiers exhale collectively. Epeius examines the damaged scaffold, his expression grim. "We need stronger supports," he declares. "The horse is heavier than I calculated." This creates a new problem. The camp's supply of large timber is already stretched thin by the construction. Where will they find more? The solution comes from an unexpected source. Nestor, the eldest of the Greek kings, approaches the construction site, leaning on his staff. "Use the oak supports from my ship," the old man offers, his voice carrying surprising strength. "We can replace them later if we survive this gambit." Epeius looks startled by the offer. Ship timber is precious, especially to a king. "My lord, are you certain? Your vessel—" "Will serve me little if we die here at Troy," Nestor interrupts. "Take what you need." Within the hour, crews arrive carrying massive oak beams from Nestor's beached ship. These are quickly worked into stronger scaffolding that better supports the growing weight of the horse. As the day progresses, you notice something curious. Epeius has begun adding decorative elements to the horse's exterior, not just functional construction, but artistic touches. Carved mane details appear along the neck. The eyes are carefully shaped to appear alert and lifelike. The tail, crafted from actual horsehair collected from the army's remaining mounts, is attached with meticulous attention. "Why waste time on how it looks?" grumbles a soldier nearby. "It just needs to hold men." "Because," explains another, a shipbuilder from Athens, "the Trojans need to want it. They need to see it as valuable, worth dragging inside their walls." The wisdom of this strikes you suddenly. This isn't just a transport device, it's a seduction. Every carved detail, every artistic flourish makes the horse more tempting, more irresistible as a prize. By early afternoon, the horse's structural elements are largely complete. The focus shifts to the critical trapdoor on the belly's underside. This seemingly simple feature is receiving extraordinary attention from Epeius himself. He works alone on this crucial element, allowing no one else to assist. From your vantage point, you can see him creating an ingenious locking mechanism, a series of sliding wooden bolts that can be secured from inside, yet released quickly when needed. "It must be invisible from outside," you overhear him explaining to Odysseus, who has come to inspect progress, "yet easy to operate in darkness by men who may be cramped and terrified." "And if it jams?" Odysseus asks the question everyone fears. Epeius's jaw tightens. "It won't. I'll be inside to ensure it." This is the moment you realize the true extent of Epeius's courage. He's not just building the horse, he's entrusting his life to his own craftsmanship. If the door fails, if the structure collapses, if the design proves flawed, he dies first and most certainly. As afternoon wears on, the sun beats down mercilessly. Men work stripped to the waist, sweat streaming down dust-covered bodies. Water carriers circulate constantly as dehydration becomes a serious concern. Despite the conditions, the work continues with remarkable precision. The head takes shape under the skilled hands of a team led by a sculptor from Argos. What yesterday was a rough wooden block now displays the distinct features of a stallion: flared nostrils, alert ears, proud neck. They've even begun applying thin bronze sheeting to parts of the face, creating a metallic gleam that catches the sunlight. "Beautiful," murmurs a voice beside you. It's Machaon, one of the army's physicians, almost ashamed to use it for such deception. "Do you think it will work?" you ask, voicing the doubt that plagues everyone. Machaon considers the question seriously. "The Trojans are proud. They've withstood us for 10 years. To suddenly find us gone, leaving only this magnificent offering," he shrugs. "Pride often blinds men to obvious traps." Mid-afternoon brings a critical test. The scaffolding supporting the horse's left front section must be temporarily removed to allow workers access to the underside. This means the structure must support its own weight fully for the first time. Epeius oversees this operation personally, tension evident in every line of his body. Men with pry bars stand ready to quickly replace supports if the leg begins to buckle. Others grip ropes attached to the upper body, prepared to stabilize the horse if it leans. "Slowly," Epeius commands, as workers begin removing the scaffolding. "Keep tension on those guide ropes." Inch by inch, the supporting timbers are withdrawn. The horse's leg trembles slightly under the shifting weight. A creaking sound sends a ripple of anxiety through the watching crowd. Then, nothing. The leg holds. The structure remains stable. A cheer erupts from the workers, quickly hushed by officers. They're still trying to maintain some secrecy about the project, though by now every man in camp knows what's being built. Epius allows himself a brief smile, the first you've seen from him during this entire process. It's the look of a craftsman whose creation has just passed a crucial test. The successful weight test energizes the workers. Progress accelerates through the afternoon as confidence in the design grows. The exterior planking is now nearly complete, transforming the horse from skeleton to solid form. Only the underside remains partially open, allowing final interior work. That interior is a marvel of engineering in itself. Watching workers climb inside, you glimpse the complex internal structure. 3 levels of platforms where warriors will sit or crouch, reinforced with bracing that provides both strength and handholds. Small air holes, disguised as decorative elements, are strategically placed to provide minimal ventilation without revealing the hollow nature of the horse. 30 men inside that, mutters a soldier next to you. Like sardines in a clay pot. 30 of our best, corrects another. Men who don't panic in tight spaces. The conversation around you turns to speculation about who has volunteered and who has been selected for the mission. Names circulate. Odysseus, certainly. Diomedes. Menelaus has insisted on being included, driven by his need to reclaim Helen. Young Neoptolemus, Achilles' son, eager to prove himself worthy of his father's legacy, and of course Epius himself. The creator must accompany his creation. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, a new group arrives at the construction site. These aren't workers, but warriors, the men chosen to hide inside the horse. They've come to familiarize themselves with the interior, to understand exactly how they'll fit into the cramped space. One by one, they climb the temporary ladder into the horse's belly. You recognize many of the faces, heroes of countless battles over the past decade. They disappear inside, their voices becoming muffled as they explore their future hiding place. Some emerge looking troubled by the confined space. Others seem grimly determined. None appear to have reconsidered their commitment to the plan. Odysseus is last to exit. He confers briefly with Epeius, then addresses the gathered warriors. "Tomorrow we practice," he announces. "Full equipment, full duration. We must know our limits before we face the real test." This pronouncement is met with solemn nods. Everyone understands what's at stake. One cough, one sneeze, one panicked outburst inside Troy, and all these men die. As evening approaches, work begins to slow. The main structure is largely complete, lacking only final exterior details and the all-important wheels that will allow the horse to be moved. Those components wait for tomorrow, the final day of construction. Epeius makes a circuit of the entire structure, inspecting every joint, every seam, every support. His expression alternates between satisfaction and concern as he notes small issues that still need addressing. He carries a piece of charcoal, marking areas that require attention with small crosses. Watching him, you're struck by the transformation. This is the same man who trembled in battle formation, who was mocked for his reluctance to engage in combat. Yet here, surrounded by his creation, he radiates absolute competence and authority. His orders are obeyed without question by men who would have jeered at him a week ago. As darkness falls, Agamemnon himself comes to inspect the progress. The High King walks slowly around the horse, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nods to Epeius. "It will serve," he says simply. Coming from Agamemnon, this qualifies as lavish praise. Workers are finally dismissed for the night, stumbling away toward cooking fires and wine rations. Many can barely stay awake long enough to eat. The pace has been punishing, the work physically demanding. Only Epeius remains, as he did the night before, but this time he's not alone. A small group gathers near him. Odysseus, Diomedes, a few others, spread around a diagram scratched in the dirt. They speak in low voices, discussing tomorrow's final stages and the plan that will follow completion. From your distance, you can't hear their words, but their body language speaks volumes. This is no longer theoretical. The horse is real, taking shape more impressively than anyone expected. Now they must ensure that the deception itself succeeds. Later, as camp settles into uneasy sleep, you notice something strange. Men are bringing small personal items to the horse, talismans, good luck charms, tiny offerings. Some murmur prayers as they touch the wooden flanks, others simply stand in silent contemplation. In just 2 days, this creation has transformed from Odysseus's desperate scheme to something approaching sacred. It embodies the army's collective hope for an end to the endless war, for a return to homes and families many have not seen in a decade. As you finally seek your own bedroll, exhaustion dragging at your limbs, you glance back at the looming silhouette of the horse against the starry sky. In the moonlight, it almost seems to breathe, to shift slightly as if impatient to fulfill its purpose. And standing sentinel beside it, a solitary figure remains, Epeius, still working, still perfecting, still pouring his soul into the creation that will either bring glorious victory or spectacular defeat. Tomorrow, you think as sleep claims you. Tomorrow the horse will be complete, and after that, either home or Hades awaits. In your dreams, you see the horse again, but larger, impossibly massive, casting a shadow over all of Troy. It no longer resembles a gift, but a warning, a prophecy of doom, crafted in wood and bronze. And somewhere inside its cavernous belly, warriors wait with held breath and drawn swords, ready to unleash 10 years of accumulated rage upon the unsuspecting city. At the heart of it all stands Epeius, not the trembling soldier, but the master craftsman, the man whose hands created destruction disguised as a gift, the unsung architect of Troy's downfall. The third day of construction brings a strange mood to the Greek camp. Men move with purpose, but speak in hushed tones. There's a tension in the air, the electric anticipation that precedes either triumph or disaster. Nothing in between seems possible now. When you reach the construction site, the horse stands nearly complete. In the clear morning light, it's even more impressive than it appeared the previous evening. Standing over 25 feet tall, its wooden body gleams with a coat of linseed oil that deepens the colour and protects the wood. Bronze fittings catch the sunlight, creating flashes of brilliance along its flanks. The carved head looks proudly toward Troy, as if eager for its journey. Epeius directs the final efforts from the ground, his voice hoarse from 2 days of constant commands. Dark circles rim his eyes, but his focus hasn't wavered. If anything, his attention to detail has grown more intense as completion nears. The wheels, he instructs a team of wheelwrights, attach them exactly as I've marked. The balance must be perfect. The wheels represent the day's main challenge, massive wooden discs salvaged from grain carts and war chariots, reinforced with iron bands. Each stands nearly 5 feet tall and must bear tremendous weight while allowing the horse to move smoothly across rough terrain. "Will they hold?" asks a soldier, eyeing the wheels skeptically. "They'll hold," Epius replies with the certainty that has become his trademark. "I've reinforced the axles with bronze and added supports to distribute the weight evenly. You notice something new today: armed guards positioned around the construction site, keeping a wider perimeter clear of onlookers. Secrecy seems more important now that the horse nears completion, though what secret remains when a giant wooden horse stands in plain view is hard to imagine." "Trojan scouts," explains a soldier when you ask about the increased security. "They've been spotted on the ridgeline to the east. We can't risk them seeing too much activity around the horse. This makes sense. The success of the plan depends on the Trojans believing the Greeks have departed, leaving only the horse behind as an offering. Too many observers would reveal the deception before it even begins." Near midday, a critical operation begins, installing the trapdoor. Epius personally oversees this work, allowing only his most trusted assistants to help. The door is a marvel of engineering. When closed, it blends seamlessly with the surrounding planking. Only someone who knows exactly what to look for would notice the faint seam that betrays its existence. The locking mechanism is even more impressive. A series of wooden sliders can secure the door from inside, yet allow it to open outward when released in the correct sequence. Epeius tests it repeatedly, making minute adjustments until the operation is perfectly smooth and silent. It must work flawlessly in complete darkness, he explains to an attentive Odysseus, "by feel alone, with trembling hands." Odysseus nods, understanding the implications. When the time comes to emerge from the horse, there will be no light, no time for complications, and absolutely no margin for error. As the sun climbs toward its zenith, another group arrives at the construction site. The chosen warriors, who will hide inside the horse. Unlike yesterday's brief inspection, today they come prepared for a full rehearsal. Each carries his weapons and armor, wrapped in cloth to prevent metal clanking against metal. Epius addresses them with unexpected authority, this carpenter now commanding Greece's greatest heroes. "Today we practice exactly as it will happen," he tells the assembled warriors. "Full duration, full equipment. No one leaves until I give the signal, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes." The men nod grimly. They understand what's being asked. Hours in a cramped, airless space, unable to stretch or speak above a whisper. A test of endurance before the real test even begins. One by one, they climb the ladder into the horse's belly. Each warrior has been assigned a specific position, a designated space within the three-tiered interior where he must remain absolutely still for hours. The largest men take positions near the shoulders and haunches, where the interior space is greatest. Smaller, more agile warriors are placed closer to the trapdoor, ready to exit first when the time comes. Odysseus is last to enter, pausing at the opening to address the men already settled inside. "Remember," he says quietly, "discomfort is temporary, victory is forever." Then he too disappears into the wooden belly. Epius follows, the final man to enter. Assistants remove the ladder and seal the small access panel used for loading, separate from the trapdoor and designed to be invisible once closed. For the next several hours, the horse stands silent and still under the beating sun. Occasionally, workers apply more linseed oil to the exterior, protecting the wood from drying too quickly in the heat. Others continue adding decorative elements, painted symbols dedicated to Poseidon, small bronze accents that catch the light attractively. From outside, there's no indication that 30 of Greece's deadliest warriors sit in sweltering darkness within. No sound escapes, no movement betrays their presence. How long will they stay in there, you ask a nearby soldier. Until Epeius gives the signal, he replies with a shrug. Testing their limits. And if someone can't handle it, the soldier's expression darkens. Then better to know now than inside Troy. The implications hang in the air. Any warrior who cannot endure today's rehearsal will be replaced regardless of rank or reputation. This mission allows no weak links. As afternoon wears on, curious soldiers continue to gather at the perimeter, watching the final work on the horse's exterior. Artisans apply gold leaf to selected decorative elements, the eyes, portions of the mane, small symbols worked into the flanks. The effect is stunning, transforming the horse from merely impressive to truly magnificent. Is all that necessary? Grumbles an older soldier. Seems like wasted effort. It's essential, responds a nearby officer. The Trojans must see it as a treasure, something too valuable to destroy. This is the genius of the plan, you realize, not just the concealment of warriors, but the psychological manipulation. After 10 years of deprivation inside their besieged city, the Trojans will see the horse as more than a religious offering. They'll view it as a prize, a treasure left behind by the defeated Greeks. Temptation and pride will do what a decade of direct assault could not. Finally, as the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, a small hatch on the horse's side opens. Epeius emerges first, his face flushed and damp with sweat. He drops lightly to the ground, then turns to help others exit. One by one, the warriors climb out, moving stiffly after hours in confined positions. Some wince as they stretch cramped muscles. Others gulp gratefully at the water carriers rush forward to provide. All look physically drained, but their expressions show grim satisfaction. They endured. Odysseus is among the last to exit. He confers briefly with Epeius, then addresses the group. 6 hours, he announces. 6 hours without a sound that could be heard outside. It will serve. 6 hours. You try to imagine spending that time crammed into a dark, airless space, unable to move, speak, or relieve yourself. The discipline required is staggering. As the warriors disperse to recover, Agamemnon arrives with his inner circle, Menelaus, Nestor, the great Ajax. They inspect the now complete horse with critical eyes, walking a full circuit around the massive construction. Magnificent, declares Nestor, the oldest and perhaps wisest of the kings. Even knowing its purpose, I find myself drawn to it. The Trojans will never resist. The inscription? Agamemnon asks, turning to Epeius. In response, the carpenter leads them to the horse's right flank, where elegant Greek letters have been carved into the wood and inlaid with silver. For their return home, the Greeks dedicate this offering to Athena. Perfect, Menelaus nods approvingly. Religious enough to make them hesitate to destroy it, vague enough to intrigue them. As twilight approaches, Epeius supervises the application of the final decorative elements: horsehair for the tail and parts of the mane, thin sheets of hammered bronze for selected accents. Under his exacting direction, the horse transforms from impressive construction to awe-inspiring artwork. It's beautiful, you overhear a soldier whisper to his companion. Almost seems wrong to use it for such bloody purpose. After 10 years, his friend responds bitterly, I'd use the temple of Apollo itself if it would get me home. Such is the exhaustion of this long war. Men beyond caring about methods, focused only on results. The wooden horse represents more than a military stratagem. It embodies the collective desperation of an army too long from home. As darkness falls, Agamemnon calls for torches to be lit around the horse. In the flickering light, the massive creation seems almost alive, shadows playing across its wooden flanks like rippling muscles. The effect is both magnificent and slightly unnerving. The High King addresses the gathered commanders, his voice pitched low but carrying in the night air. "Tomorrow," he declares, "we implement Odysseus's plan. At dawn, we dismantle the camp, burn what cannot be carried, and sail the fleet beyond the horizon to Tenedos. Only the horse remains, with our chosen warriors inside." He turns to a slight, nervous-looking man standing nearby. Sinon, a cousin of Odysseus, known for his quick tongue and convincing manner. Sinon will stay behind, apparently abandoned, to tell the tale we have crafted. He will convince the Trojans to take the horse inside their walls. Sinon swallows visibly, but nods his agreement. His role may be the most dangerous of all, alone among enemies, armed only with lies. Once darkness falls, Agamemnon continues, the fleet returns silently. When the horse is inside Troy and the city sleeps, our warriors emerge, open the gates, and we end this war once and for all. The simple brutality of the plan hangs in the air. 10 years of failed sieges, collapsed tunnels, and repelled assaults, all potentially undone by a single night of deception. As the meeting concludes, you notice Epeius standing slightly apart, his hand resting on the wooden flank of his creation. His expression is complex, pride in his workmanship certainly, but also something more somber. He understands better than anyone what his craft will unleash. Later, as the camp settles into what may be its final night outside Troy's walls, you observe an interesting ritual developing. Soldiers approach the horse in small groups, placing hands on its wooden surface while murmuring prayers or personal pledges. Some leave small tokens: a lock of hair, a carved figure, a polished stone from home. The horse has become more than a weapon. It's transformed into a vessel for 10 years of collective hope, rage, and homesickness. Epeius remains near his creation through the night, making final adjustments, applying another coat of protective oil, checking and rechecking the trapdoor mechanism. His dedication has transcended professional pride. This horse has become his life's defining work. As you prepare for sleep, thoughts of tomorrow's daring plan keep you awake. The audacity of it is breathtaking. After a decade of conventional warfare, victory may come through carpentry and theatre rather than spears and arrows. You glance toward the looming silhouette of the horse, visible even in the darkness, and wonder about the man who created it. Will history remember Epeius, or will the glory go to Odysseus, who conceived the plan, to the warriors who risk everything inside, to the kings who will claim the victory? Craftsmen rarely receive the acclaim of warriors, you reflect. The man who builds the spear is forgotten, while the man who wields it becomes legend. Yet without Epeius's hands and mind, there would be no wooden horse, no final gambit for victory. As sleep finally claims you, your last conscious thought is of those hands, the same hands that trembled too much to hold a spear steady in battle, yet remained rock solid while creating the instrument of Troy's destruction. Perhaps courage takes forms the poets never sing about. Tomorrow the deception begins. Tomorrow the cowardly carpenter's masterpiece will face its ultimate test. And by this time tomorrow night, the war may finally be over, one way or another. Dawn arrives with unusual activity throughout the Greek camp. For the first time in a decade, men pack their belongings with purpose rather than resignation. Tents come down, supply stores are distributed or burned, ships that have sat on the shoreline for years are prepared for launch. The evacuation, real in its physical execution, false in its intent, proceeds with remarkable efficiency. By mid-morning, the once sprawling Greek encampment has been reduced to smouldering ruins and trampled earth. Only the massive wooden horse remains, standing alone and magnificent against the skyline, positioned squarely before Troy's main gates. From your position aboard one of the departing ships, you watch as the final stage is set. Sinon, the designated deceiver, allows himself to be discovered hiding among the ruins by Trojan scouts who have cautiously emerged to investigate the Greeks' apparent departure. His performance, even from a distance, is convincing. The frightened, abandoned Greek, left behind as a sacrifice, now begging for Trojan mercy. As your vessel joins the fleet sailing toward the island of Tenedos, just far enough to disappear from Trojan view, close enough to return by nightfall, you find your thoughts dwelling on those left behind. 30 warriors sealed inside a wooden belly, completely dependent on the craftsmanship of a single man and the persuasive skills of another. But what is it like inside that wooden prison? What experiences await those chosen few as they gamble everything on this audacious deception? Inside the horse, darkness is absolute. The small air holes, disguised as decorative elements on the exterior, admit only the faintest suggestion of light, barely enough to distinguish shapes, not nearly enough to see expressions or details. Epius sits near the trapdoor, his position both practical and symbolic. As the creator of this wooden vessel, he alone fully understands its construction. If anything goes wrong with the release mechanism, he must be the one to fix it. The interior space, though ingeniously designed to accommodate 30 men, remains brutally cramped. Warriors sit or crouch on 3 different levels, arranged according to Odysseus's careful planning. Each man has a designated position, a space barely large enough for his body, certainly too small for comfort. "Stop shifting," hisses a voice in the darkness. Diomedes, recognizable by the scar that marks his voice, addressing someone unseen. "My leg is cramping," comes the whispered response. "Your discomfort or all our lives. Choose." Silence follows. In the darkness, men find what small adjustments they can make without disturbing others. A shoulder pressed against rough wood, a knee touching bronze armor, the metallic smell of weapons mingled with the earthy scent of timber and the increasingly pungent odor of confined human bodies. Hours pass with excruciating slowness. Despite yesterday's rehearsal, the reality of confinement proves more challenging than anticipated. The heat inside the wooden belly builds as the sun climbs higher. Sweat trickles down faces, soaks through tunics, pools uncomfortably where bodies meet wooden surfaces. Breathing becomes a conscious effort, slow, controlled inhalations of increasingly stale air. The small ventilation holes provide minimal relief, nothing close to comfort. Odysseus has positioned himself at the center level where he can whisper commands that reach most of the confined warriors. Now his voice comes softly through the darkness. Remember your training, control your breathing, focus your mind away from discomfort. Easy for him to say, thinks Epeius, though he would never voice such thoughts aloud. The king of Ithaca has endured countless hardships in this long war, yet even Odysseus must find this confinement challenging. The surrender of control, the vulnerability of being sealed inside Epeius's creation. Suddenly, a new sound penetrates the wooden walls. Voices, Trojan voices, drawing nearer. The men inside the horse freeze, barely daring to breathe. This is the first critical moment, the Trojan discovery of their gift. The voices grow louder, more numerous. Words become distinguishable through the wooden barrier. Magnificent. Must be a tribute to Poseidon, left by the Greeks as they fled. Excitement colours the Trojan voices. After 10 years of siege, the sudden departure of their tormentors would be cause enough for celebration. Finding this spectacular offering only heightens their jubilation. Inside the horse, the Greek warriors remain motionless, controlling even their breathing to minimize any sound. Years of battlefield discipline serve them well in this most unusual of challenges. Then a new voice joins the Trojan chorus, deeper, authoritative. King Priam himself has come to view the mysterious offering. "Read me the inscription," the old king commands. A younger voice recites the false dedication. For their return home, the Greeks dedicate this offering to Athena. Athena, Priam muses, their patron goddess. A final acknowledgement of defeat, perhaps. The discussion outside intensifies. What should be done with this magnificent wooden structure? Some argue for bringing it immediately into the city, a trophy of their victory, a religious offering too valuable to leave outside the walls. Others express caution. "It could be a trick," warns a skeptical voice. "We should burn it where it stands." Inside the horse, Epeius feels his heart rate spike. Fire, the one threat he couldn't fully design against. The wood has been treated with oils to prevent easy ignition, but sustained flames would eventually take hold. He glances toward where Odysseus sits in darkness, wondering if the king has a contingency for this possibility. But before panic can spread among the hidden warriors, another Trojan voice intervenes, a priest of Apollo, judging by the respectful tones directed toward him. "We must not destroy an offering to the gods," the priest declares. "Such sacrilege would surely bring divine punishment upon Troy." A heated debate ensues outside, voices rising and falling as different factions argue their positions. Inside, the Greek warriors remain frozen in tense silence, their fate hanging on the outcome of this Trojan council. Hours seem to pass, though perhaps it's only minutes stretched by fear and anticipation. Finally, King Priam's authoritative voice cuts through the clamour. "The offering shall be brought into Troy and placed in the temple of Athena. Let it stand as testimony to our victory and the gods' favour upon our city." A collective decision made. Now comes the physical challenge. Inside the horse, Epeius mentally reviews his design calculations. The structure weighs several tons, manageable when pulled by a large team over flat ground, but the approach to Troy's gates includes a slight incline. Will the wheels hold? Will the axles support the weight during the ascent? Movement begins. A sudden lurch that nearly dislodges several warriors from their positions. Men bite back curses as they brace against the wooden interior, steadying themselves and their neighbours. The horse rocks alarmingly as it's pulled forward by what sounds like dozens of Trojans, their excited voices and strained breathing penetrating the wooden walls. Each bump and jolt threatens to betray the warriors hidden inside. A dropped weapon, a dislodged piece of armour, an involuntary cry of pain as a man is thrown against the unyielding wood. Epeius feels each vibration with a craftsman's heightened awareness. Every creak, every strain of timber against joining, he recognizes the specific sounds of his creation under stress, which are normal, which might signal impending failure. The ascent toward Troy's gates begins. The incline is slight but noticeable in the increased strain of the Trojans pulling the massive structure. Inside, the warriors shift their weight backward instinctively, attempting to counterbalance the tilt. A particularly violent jolt causes something to break loose. A small bronze-fitting tears free from its mounting and clatters to the floor of the horse's belly. In the confined darkness, the sound seems impossibly loud. The procession outside halts. Voices question. Inside, 30 warriors hold their breath, hands instinctively tightening on weapons they hope not to use yet. "What was that?" asks a Trojan voice, suspicious. "Just the wood settling," answers another. "Such a large structure naturally makes noises when moved." Epius silently blesses whoever offered that explanation. It's exactly what he would have said, what any craftsman would recognize as plausible. After a tense moment, the procession resumes. The horse continues its journey toward Troy's gates, its hidden occupants now hyper-aware of every sound they make or might make. Another challenge awaits at the gates themselves. Though Epeius designed the horse to fit through Troy's main entrance, the margin is narrow. Any miscalculation in his measurements, any unexpected protrusion from the gates could halt the entire operation. The horse stops again. Outside, Trojans discuss the best approach for navigating the final obstacle. Inside, Odysseus takes advantage of the pause to whisper almost inaudibly to the men nearest him, "Prepare yourselves. If we're discovered now, we fight our way out. No surrender." The implication is clear. If the deception fails at this critical juncture, these 30 men will attempt what thousands of Greeks couldn't accomplish in 10 years, breaching Troy's defences through sheer desperate combat. A suicide mission, essentially. Epius finds his hand moving to the small pouch at his belt. Inside rests his contingency, a sharp bronze blade, suitable for one quick, honourable end if capture seems inevitable. He suspects many of his companions carry similar insurance. Movement resumes, more controlled now. The horse advances inch by careful inch toward the gates. Epeius mentally traces their progress, visualizing the massive wooden wheels crossing the threshold, the body squeezing between the stone pillars, the proud head clearing the top of the archway. A collective gasp from outside confirms their success. The horse has entered Troy. After 10 years of keeping Greeks outside their walls, the Trojans have voluntarily brought 30 of their deadliest enemies inside. The significance of this moment isn't lost on anyone inside the wooden belly. 10 years of conventional warfare failed to breach these legendary walls. A single night of deception has succeeded where force could not. The journey continues through Troy's streets. From the sounds outside, it seems the entire population has emerged to witness this spectacle. Cheering crowds, musicians playing celebratory tunes, priests chanting blessings. The procession takes on the character of a religious festival or triumph parade. Inside, the Greek warriors endure these celebrations with grim patience. Each cheer, each joyous cry, each prayer of thanksgiving for the Greeks' departure will be answered with blood before the next dawn. The heat inside the horse becomes nearly unbearable as the day progresses. Men struggle to remain conscious in the stifling air, breathing shallowly to conserve the limited oxygen. Odysseus continues his silent vigilance, occasionally touching a neighbour's arm or leg, signals to stay alert, to endure. Finally, the procession halts. From the acoustics, the way sound suddenly echoes differently around them. Epius surmises they've reached their destination, a large enclosed space, the temple of Athena most likely, as Priam decreed. Outside, formal ceremonies begin. Prayers, offerings, speeches by Trojan leaders claiming divine favour in the Greeks' departure. Inside, warriors shift minutely, attempting to restore circulation to numbed limbs without creating noise. The worst is still to come. Hours more confinement until nightfall, until the city sleeps, until the moment to strike arrives. As the ceremonies conclude, the crowds gradually disperse. The sounds outside diminish, though guards remain posted near the horse, their movements and occasional comments audible to the men within. Afternoon stretches into evening. Inside the horse, time loses meaning in the unchanging darkness. Men drift between alert watchfulness and something approaching meditation, a warrior's ability to rest while remaining conscious, to conserve strength for the coming exertion. Epius focuses on his breathing, on the solid presence of the trapdoor mechanism beneath his hands. When the moment comes, this simple assembly of wood and bronze will need to function perfectly. Lives depend on it, not just those inside the horse, but the entire Greek army waiting offshore. As night falls, the sounds of Troy gradually transform. Celebrations continue in distant parts of the city. Music, laughter, the unmistakable noise of a population finally free from siege and fear. But around the temple, quiet descends. The guard rotation changes. Fewer men left to watch over a harmless wooden offering. Inside the horse, tension builds with each passing hour. Every warrior knows the plan. Wait for deep night when wine and exhaustion have claimed most Trojans. Wait for Sinon to light the signal fire that will recall the Greek fleet. Wait for Odysseus's command to open the trapdoor and begin the assault. Midnight comes and goes, marked only by the changing of guards outside. The city's celebrations have largely quieted, replaced by the deep silence of collective sleep. Inside the horse, men prepare themselves mentally for what comes next. The violence, the bloodshed, the sacking of a city 10 years defended. Epius finds himself thinking of the horse itself, this creation that has consumed his mind and hands for 3 days. After tonight, it will likely be destroyed or forgotten, a mere footnote in the tale of Troy's fall. Few will remember the craftsman who built it, the calculations that ensured its stability, the clever trapdoor that will soon release Greece's vengeance. Such is the way of war, he reflects. The tools are forgotten while the victories enter legend. A subtle shift in the quality of silence alerts the hidden warriors. The last guards have either abandoned their posts or succumbed to sleep, believing their duty a mere formality on this night of celebration. Then the awaited sound, 3 soft taps on the horse's flank. Sinon signal: the fleet has returned. Greek forces are approaching the gates. The time has come. Odysseus's whisper cuts through the darkness. Epius, open the way. This is the moment everything has built toward. Epius runs his fingers along the familiar mechanism of the trapdoor, feeling each component one final time. Then, with practiced movements, he releases the catches in their precise sequence. The door doesn't move. Panic flares briefly in Epius's chest as he tries again, applying slightly more pressure. Still nothing. Has something warped in the day's heat? Has the mechanism failed after hours of tension? A warrior nearby shifts impatiently. Another whispers a curse. Everything hinges on this simple wooden door performing its function. Epius closes his eyes, though it makes no difference in the absolute darkness. He visualizes the mechanism completely, tracing each component in his mind. Then he understands. The pressure of 30 men's weight, distributed differently than in testing, has slightly misaligned the sliding bolt. With careful precision, he applies pressure at a specific angle while simultaneously operating the release catch. A soft click, almost inaudible, signals success. The trapdoor begins to move. Fresh air rushes into the stifling interior. Cool, sweet, reviving. Men inhale deeply, their first full breaths in nearly a day. Epius secures the door in its open position, then prepares to be the first to exit, his knowledge of the horse's construction making him the logical choice to ensure safe descent for all. Before lowering himself through the opening, he places a hand on the wooden interior one last time, a craftsman's farewell to his greatest creation, now fulfilling its deadly purpose. The night air outside feels like divine blessing after the confined heat. Epius drops silently to the stone floor of the temple, immediately moving aside to make way for the warriors following. One by one they emerge, Odysseus, Diomedes, Menelaus, others, each moving with the silent precision of experienced killers. No Trojan witnesses this emergence. The temple stands empty save for the statue of Athena, seeming to watch with stone eyes as her supposed offering disgorges Greece's deadliest warriors. The men assemble in pre-arranged groups, each with assigned targets. The gates to be opened, key defensive positions to be secured, specific Trojan leaders to be eliminated before they can organize resistance. Odysseus addresses them in the barest whisper. For 10 years they've kept us outside. Tonight we end it. No mercy, no hesitation. For Greece. For Greece. 30 voices respond in near-silent unison. Weapons drawn, they move toward the temple doors and the sleeping city beyond. Epius falls into position with the group assigned to secure the main gates. After years of being dismissed as the cowardly craftsman, tonight he will prove his worth in blood as well as skill. Behind them stands the hollow horse, its purpose now fulfilled, empty but for the lingering scent of confined warriors and the invisible weight of its deadly deception. By dawn, it will be nothing but a wooden shell amid a conquered city. As they slip into the Trojan night, Epius glances back one final time at his creation, the masterpiece that succeeded where 10 years of warfare failed. History may forget his name, but his work will live forever in the fall of legendary Troy. The warriors disappear into the darkened streets like shadows, moving toward their targets with deadly purpose. The trap has been sprung, the great deception completed. Now begins the violent epilogue to a decade of siege, and at the center of it all, connecting concept to execution, stands the unlikely figure of Epius. The trembling spearman transformed into history's most effective military engineer, the coward whose craftsmanship conquered Troy. As the first distant screams begin to pierce the night, the wooden horse stands silent, witness to the beginning of the end, a monument to human ingenuity and deception that will be remembered long after the names of individual warriors fade from memory. The darkness of Troy's final night is broken by scattered torchlight, small moving flames that mark the progress of Greek warriors through the sleeping city. The silence that initially greeted their emergence from the wooden horse has shattered into a cacophony of alarm horns, shouts, and the unmistakable sounds of battle. Epius moves with his assigned group toward the main gates. Despite years of being mocked for his battlefield hesitation, tonight his hands remain steady on his sword. Perhaps it's the clarity of purpose, perhaps the presence of his comrades, or perhaps something has fundamentally shifted within him after creating the instrument of Troy's downfall. Whatever the reason, the trembling carpenter has become a determined warrior. The streets of Troy form a confusing labyrinth to most of the Greeks, but Odysseus planned for this. Each attack group includes at least one man who studied maps of the city, memorizing key routes and landmarks. Epius's group follows such a guide, Machaon, who spent years treating wounded Trojans under truce flags and used those opportunities to mentally map the city's layout. They encounter the first real resistance at a small guardhouse near the main wall. 4 bleary-eyed Trojan soldiers, likely assigned punishment duty on this night of celebration, emerge with spears levelled. They've heard the commotion from other parts of the city and stand ready, if confused. Greeks! one shouts in alarm, finally noticing their armor in the dim light. Greeks inside the walls. The fight is brief and brutal. These are not the fresh-faced Trojan soldiers of 10 years ago, but neither are the Greeks the warriors they once were. A decade of siege has worn down both sides. What the Greeks retain, however, is the desperate intensity of men executing their final gambit. They cannot afford to fail. When it's over, Epeius finds himself standing over a fallen Trojan, sword bloody in his hand. He doesn't recall the specific movements of the fight, just the rush of action, the impact of bronze on bronze, then flesh yielding to his blade. His typical battlefield panic never materialized. Instead, a cold focus carried him through. "Oh, steady work," comments Anticlus, one of the legendary fighters among them. The simple acknowledgement, warrior to warrior, lands differently than any praise Epeius has received for his craftsmanship. They continue toward the gates, moving faster now as alarm spreads through the city. The element of surprise is fading with each passing moment. Their task, reaching and opening the massive gates before Troy's defences can properly organise, grows more urgent. The main gates of Troy are engineering marvels in themselves, massive wooden structures reinforced with bronze, operated by a complex system of counterweights that allow them to be opened by relatively few men. During the siege, these gates were the city's most closely guarded point. Tonight, they find them manned by only a skeleton crew, 4 guards who clearly didn't expect to see combat. The fight here is equally swift but more significant. Once secured, Machaon and Epeius examine the gate mechanism while others stand guard. As a craftsman, Epeius quickly grasps the operating principles. "Here," he directs, pointing to a large bronze lever. "This releases the counterweight, and these pins," he indicates several bronze bolts securing additional bracing, "must be removed first." Working together, they dismantle the bracing, then position themselves at the lever. The mechanism resists initially, perhaps from minimal use during the long siege, then yields with a groaning sound. Slowly, ponderously, the gates of Troy begin to swing outward. Through the widening opening, they catch their first glimpse of the plain beyond and the advancing Greek army, hundreds of shadowy figures moving swiftly toward the city, torches and weapons gleaming in the night. The fleet has returned under cover of darkness, disgorging thousands of warriors eager to end this interminable war. "Signal them," Machaon orders, and a soldier raises a torch, waving it in a specific pattern. The approaching forces adjust their course slightly, heading directly for the now open entrance. Epeius steps back from the gates, experiencing a strange doubling of perspective. The wooden horse, his creation, brought 30 men inside Troy's impenetrable defences. Now these same defences stand open, inviting in an army that could never breach them through direct assault. Craft and deception have accomplished what strength could not. As Greek forces pour through the gates, Epeius's group receives new orders. Join the assault on the upper city, where Trojan nobility and leadership reside. This is where the most determined resistance will form, where the true battle for Troy will be decided. They move uphill through increasingly chaotic streets. The city is fully awake now, its celebration transformed to panic. Civilians flee in confused terror, some running directly into Greek weapons in their desperation to escape. Warriors scramble to defend positions never meant to repel attacks from within. The carefully ordered life of Troy collapses into primal chaos, survival or death with little in between. The assault on the upper city unfolds like a nightmare. Greek warriors, frustrated by 10 years of stalemate, release their accumulated rage on anything in their path. Homes burn, treasures are seized, blood flows freely. The code of conduct that governed the long siege has evaporated in this final, desperate night. Epius finds himself fighting alongside men he's known for a decade, yet never truly fought beside. His carpentry skills kept him largely away from the front lines during the siege. Tonight he is simply another Greek warrior in the sack of Troy. The violence intensifies as they approach the royal palace. Here, Trojan elite guards make their stand, protecting King Priam and his family. These are Troy's finest warriors, and despite being roused from celebration, they fight with the desperation of men defending their homes and loved ones. In the confined space of a palace corridor, Epeius faces a Trojan captain, a massive man wielding a bronze-tipped spear with practiced skill. The encounter feels strangely intimate after the chaotic street fighting. Just two men, weapons raised, eyes locked in mutual recognition of what must follow. The Trojan strikes first, his spear thrusting toward Epeius's chest. The carpenter-turned-warrior reacts with surprising speed, deflecting the point with his shield. The impact numbs his arm, but training takes over. He counters with a sword strike that the Trojan barely evades. They circle each other in the narrow space, each seeking advantage. The Trojan is stronger, more experienced in direct combat, but Epeius possesses something unexpected: the focused precision of a master craftsman, the ability to identify weakness in structure. He feints left, then right, watching how the Trojan responds, analyzing his movement patterns as he would examine a piece of timber for grain and flaws. Everyone has patterns, weaknesses in their defenses, just like wood has weak points along its grain. The Trojan lunges again, overextending slightly. Epius sees the opening, a momentary gap in the man's guard. His sword finds the narrow space between breastplate and shoulder armor, sinking deep. The Trojan captain's eyes widen in surprise, then dim as he collapses. Epeius stands breathing heavily, sword dripping crimson onto the ornate palace floor. A craftsman's hands have taken a warrior's life. The irony doesn't escape him. "All forward," calls Diomedes, leading the palace assault. The throne room, they push deeper into the palace, encountering pockets of fierce resistance. The fighting becomes desperate, hand to hand in confined spaces. Men die on both sides, but the Greek advance continues inexorably. The tide of the war, balanced for a decade, has finally tipped decisively. When they reach the throne room, they find King Priam already dead, killed by Neoptolemus, Achilles' vengeful son who sought to finish what his father started. The ancient king's blood stains the steps of Zeus's altar where he sought sanctuary. Even sacred spaces offer no protection on this night of retribution. Epius turns away from the grisly scene, only to confront another. Through a doorway he glimpses Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, the woman over whom this endless war was fought. She stands frozen in a side chamber, her legendary beauty unmarred by the decade of conflict she inspired. Their eyes meet briefly across the blood-spattered hall, neither speaking. What could possibly be said? Menelaus appears, his expression unreadable as he approaches his faithless wife. Epius withdraws, leaving them to whatever reconciliation or reckoning awaits. His part in this drama centers on wood and bronze, not the complexities of love and betrayal that sparked the war. As dawn approaches, Troy burns. Fires set deliberately or resulting from combat have spread throughout the city. The wooden horse, Epeius's masterwork, still stands in Athena's temple, untouched by the destruction surrounding it. Perhaps the Greeks retain some superstitious reverence for the instrument of their victory, or perhaps it's simply been forgotten in the chaos of conquest. Epius makes his way back to the temple as morning light begins to filter through smoke-filled air. He stands before his creation, studying it with a craftsman's critical eye. Already, the wood shows signs of stress from its journey, small cracks in non-critical areas, slight warping from the previous day's heat. Still, it performed its function perfectly. No engineer could ask for more. He places a hand on the wooden flank, feeling the smooth texture of the oil-treated timber. This horse, this deceit shaped by his hands, has ended a war that consumed a decade of his life. Because of it, he might see his home again, the family workshop he abandoned to follow kings to Troy. Saying goodbye. The voice behind him belongs to Odysseus. The king of Ithaca looks exhausted but satisfied, blood staining his armor, a fresh cut marking his forehead. In a way, Epius acknowledges, it served its purpose. Odysseus studies the horse thoughtfully. History will remember this. When they speak of the fall of Troy, they'll speak of this horse. And its architect, Epius asks, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from his voice. He already knows the answer. Craftsmen fade from memory while kings and heroes enter legend. Odysseus surprises him with a genuine smile. I'll make sure they remember the man who built the wooden horse that conquered Troy, Epius of Phocis. Whether this is truth or merely a kind lie to a useful craftsman, Epius cannot tell. It hardly matters. He has his own measure of his accomplishment, needs no poet's songs to validate what his hands have created. What will happen to it? He asks, nodding toward the horse. Burn with the city, most likely, Odysseus replies pragmatically, unless you have some sentimental attachment. Epius considers this, then shakes his head. No, it was always meant to be temporary, a means to an end. Like so many things in war, Odysseus observes. He clasps Epius's shoulder briefly, then departs to continue organizing the systematic plunder of Troy, the claiming of treasures, the selection of captives, all the grim business that follows victory. Alone with his creation, Epius performs a final inspection. He checks each joint, each stress point, methodically assessing how the structure weathered its journey and purpose. The craftsman in him can't help this final assessment, this need to understand how his design performed under real conditions. Surprisingly, most of his innovations proved sound. The trapdoor mechanism functioned despite the momentary hesitation. The wheels supported the tremendous weight across uneven terrain. The internal bracing prevented collapse despite the shifting weight of 30 armed men. Only the ventilation proved inadequate. A design flaw he notes mentally, though there will never be another Trojan horse to improve upon. Still, a craftsman always seeks to learn from his work. As the morning advances, Troy's systematic destruction continues. Greek soldiers methodically loot every building, taking anything of value before putting structures to the torch. The population that survived the night's initial violence is gathered in the agora, women and children primarily, facing slavery or worse. The men of fighting age lie dead throughout the city, having mounted a valiant but ultimately futile defense. Epeius joins a group securing the lower city where resistance has largely collapsed. The work is grim and methodical, checking buildings for hidden Trojans, collecting valuables, ensuring no counterattack can form. The craftsman-turned-warrior performs these duties with the same focused attention he brings to his woodworking, though the tasks leave a bitter taste. This is victory. He reflects. This is what 10 years of sacrifice built toward, not glory or honour, but ash and tears and plunder. He wonders if it was worth the cost to either side. By midday, Troy's fall is complete. What took a decade of siege to accomplish has been finished in a single night of violence, all because of a wooden horse and the men it carried within. The Greek army assembles on the plain outside the burning city, organizing their considerable spoils, preparing for the long-delayed journey home. Epeius stands at the edge of the army, looking back at Troy's smouldering ruins. Through gaps in the smoke, he can still see the wooden horse silhouetted against flames. Intact for now, though surely doomed to burn with everything else, he feels a strange connection to the city they've destroyed. For 10 years, Troy defined his existence, as obstacle, as enemy, as the reason he couldn't return home. Now it's nothing but a pyre, and he finds no satisfaction in its destruction. "Contemplating your handiwork?" asks a voice beside him. Neoptolemus, Achilles' son, still bloody from his kills, including King Priam himself. "In a way," Epeius acknowledges. "You should be proud," the young warrior continues. "Your horse accomplished what my father couldn't, what none of us could through strength of arms." Pride seems inappropriate given the outcome. Neoptolemus looks surprised, then dismissive. "They brought this on themselves when they sheltered Paris and Helen. 10 years they made us wait outside their walls. One night of fire seems fair exchange." The young man walks away, joining a group of warriors displaying their plunder. Epeius remains watching Troy burn. He wonders how the poets will tell this tale in years to come. Will they speak of the craft that built the horse, or only the violence it delivered? Will they mention the trembling hands that nonetheless created destruction's perfect vessel as the army prepares to depart, leaving Troy to its final consumption by flames? Odysseus approaches Epeius one last time. "The kings have agreed," he says, without preamble. "You'll receive a portion of the treasure equal to any who fought inside the walls. Your horse earned it, if nothing else." Epeius nods, accepting this recognition without particular joy. Wealth seems a poor measure of what was accomplished, conquered, no, or lost, here at Troy. "What will you do?" Odysseus asks. "When you return home?" The question catches Epeius off guard. For so long, survival was the only future he could imagine. Now, with Troy fallen and the war ended, possibility stretches before him like an unfamiliar country. "Build things," he answers finally. "Things that shelter rather than deceive, things that last." Odysseus studies him with those keen eyes that seem to see beyond surface appearances. "The horse will last longer than you think. Not the wood and bronze, perhaps, but the idea of it. Men will speak of the Trojan horse for generations. And its builder?" A slight smile touches the king's weathered face. "That depends on who tells the tale, doesn't it? History belongs to those who shape it, with swords, with words, or with skilled hands." With that cryptic response, Odysseus departs to oversee the army's withdrawal. By evening, the Greeks will be aboard their ships, beginning the long journey home to lands many haven't seen in a decade. Some will reach their destinations. Others will face storms, shipwrecks, or the vengeance of gods offended by acts committed during Troy's fall. Epeius takes a final look at the burning city, at the distant silhouette of his wooden horse still visible through smoke and flame. Then he turns away, joining the flow of warriors returning to the ships. 10 years ago, he arrived at Troy a reluctant soldier, more comfortable with tools than weapons. He departs a changed man, not quite warrior, not quite craftsman, but something forged between those identities in the crucible of endless war. As he walks toward the shore, Epeius considers what awaits in Phocis, his homeland nearly forgotten after so many years away. His father's workshop may still stand, the familiar tools perhaps waiting for hands that remember their use. He might build houses, ships, furniture, ordinary things that support life rather than end it. Yet he knows the horse will always define him. Whatever he creates in years to come, nothing will match the terrible perfection of that hollow wooden beast that delivered death to Troy. It is his masterpiece and his burden, the achievement that will outlive anything else his hands might fashion. The Greek fleet departs as night falls, ships laden with plunder, warriors, and captives. On the horizon behind them, Troy burns like a funeral pyre, flames visible for miles across the darkening sea, a decade of conflict reduced to ash and memory. On the deck of a Phocian vessel, Epeius stands at the rail, watching the distant fire gradually diminish as they sail toward home. Other warriors celebrate around him, drinking wine, boasting of kills, displaying treasures claimed from Trojan homes. He remains apart, lost in contemplation of what they've accomplished, and how. The wooden horse was a perfect machine, he reflects, not in its construction, which had flaws a craftsman's eye could detect, but in its function as deception. It transformed the impossible into the inevitable. It ended a stalemate that seemed eternal. It proved that ingenuity could succeed where strength had failed for 10 long years. Perhaps there's wisdom in that, a lesson to carry forward into peace. The directness of war, spear against shield, will against will, creates little but suffering. The oblique approach, the unexpected solution, the reimagining of problems, these offer paths beyond endless conflict. As Troy disappears from view, consumed by darkness and distance, Epeius finally feels the war's grip loosen. He has survived, he has played his part, he has created something that, for better or worse, changed the course of history. The craftsman who trembled in battle has inscribed his name in the annals of warfare more indelibly than any spear-carrying hero, not through violence, but through imagination and skill, through the work of his hands. Generations later, when Troy has faded to legend and the Greek heroes to myth, the wooden horse will remain in cultural memory, a symbol of cunning, of deception, of the hidden threat disguised as gift. Few will remember the name Epeius, the hands that built it, the mind that designed its crucial trapdoor. But perhaps that doesn't matter. A true craftsman lives on through his creations, not his name. The horse itself is testimony enough to the skill of its maker, to the ingenuity that finally ended an endless war. As the ship sails eastward toward dawn and home, Epeius closes his eyes, finally allowing exhaustion to claim him. In his dreams, he builds again, not instruments of war, but structures of peace, houses with sturdy beams, ships with graceful lines, furniture that welcomes human comfort. Yet even in dreams, the horse stands in the background, a shadow of wood and deception that follows him across time, a reminder that creation and destruction often flow from the same skilled hands. The gentle rocking of the ship on night-dark waves carries him deeper into sleep, toward home, toward whatever future awaits a man who ended a war with carpentry rather than courage. His hands, no longer trembling, rest peacefully at his sides. The hands that built the Trojan horse, that changed the course of history through craft rather than combat. And with that, like Epeius on his homeward journey, close your eyes and drift off to sleep, carried by gentle waves of story into dreams of your own making.